what is the level of the amount of humanity that we want to see in the creative work that we look at, even if it's just an ad. Not to say ads are that, but I think that's important.
In an ever-changing world, campaigns are all about collaboration and connection. From an initial brief to the follow-through, we explore how innovative thought leadership makes a campaign's success more than a possibility. Welcome to Partners in Possibility. I'm your host, Brett Marchand, CEO of Plus Company. Except, once again, I'm not actually Brett. I'm an AI-generated version of his voice. Today, we're diving into part 2 of our exploration of AI and its quickly evolving role in marketing. In part 1, real-life Brett Marchand sat down with Jeff McDonald and Jason Harris to discuss how Chat GPT made generative AI something anyone could use, and how marketers should be using AI to work smarter and faster. Jason is the co-founder and CEO of the award-winning creative agency, Mekanism, and host of the Soul and Science podcast. Jeff is an AI thought leader and the director of social strategy at Mekanism. He's been named one to watch in this space by Ad Age. Today, we continue that discussion and talk about some of the ways Mekanism has used AI to encourage creativity within their agency, how this recent AI boom is different than Web3, and what the future might look like. Just this year, at Plus Company, we brought a group together with representatives from our various agencies to share AI best practices, governance recommendations, and look at partnerships. We decided to call it the Community of Practice. Here's Jeff McDonald.
I think the word practice is so important in there. I think getting in there and trying it out in different ways, finding its shortcomings, and finding where the bias lies, or where you're going to get a response that isn't useful to you at all, or where you think it's not going to save you time, you could have came up with that assumption faster, is important. So that way we can start finding out where those shortcomings lie in the tools and find where we can make optimizations. I think one of the things we did really early on at Mekanism is we tried to get as many people onboarded to AI as possible by just teaching them a little bit about the tools that are out there in a fun way. We did this movie poster contest where people generated movie posters. They generated the log lines and the titles and even a fake movie review. And it quickly showed people what the opportunities were in a fun, unique way. But secretly, we also onboarded an entire agency on Midjourney and Chat GPT. So that way they could start practicing and really starting to see where it could be implemented in their work. And I think that's with any agency. I think anyone in the world should start at least seeing what it can do. And that way they can really start understanding what the impact is going to be.
Yeah, really good point. Jason, where do you see this? Like, when are we going to be at a point where we're going to see campaigns that are AI generated, the video, et cetera? Or will that happen? Let's look 2, 3, 4 years down, which is a long time in the world right now. But where do you think this will go?
I mean, I think there's going to be campaigns completely created by AI. And I think the sticky point right now is it's similar to when songs were, created samples or mashups, right?
Yep.
And those songs were out there and no one really said anything about it. And then all of a sudden those artists wanted payment and they wanted to be compensated because a part of that song was a piece of their original work.
Yep.
And so I think, we're a couple of years away from that happening and I think there's some organizations that are trying to create that system of, if you use a portion, this image was created from this, you get a fractional payment. And until there's that sort of centralized resource that protects the brands and the agencies from any liability, that is when you'll start to see work created through those tools and put out into the world. And I think, I don't know why this is not related to advertising, but I always go back to, that New York lawyer that used Chat GPT for legal research.
Yep.
I think he used it for some filings to liken it to these case examples, but those cases were made up.
Right.
And so that, I think, anyone in any service industry, it scared the hell out of them, because all of a sudden this guy, I think his name was Schwartz, was like infamous. And the judge, kind of threw the book at him for having, bogus citations. So I think you're like, okay, well, these tools, we're moving too fast for this stuff to be put out into public consumption. So there's going to have to be some organization that creates that legal entity to allow you to create work that is actually public facing. And I think we're a couple of years away.
Yeah. Well, this is where the intersection with Web3 and the blockchain could be really interesting, right? Because I think protecting IP, whether that be visual, video, music, ideas, etc., I think, will be really important. But also, I agree with you. Thinking about guidelines, policy, process within organizations, which is something we are doing, by the way, is really important, because you don't want to be in a situation where a brand is now on the firing line because they have used whatever from somebody else that they don't have the rights to use, right? And it could be really dangerous.
I think there's two sides to that as well. There's the can we do it? And right now, inserting the can we do it is Adobe. They're coming in and saying, if you use Adobe Firefly, their image generation algorithm, they're going to indemnify you as a business from any further lawsuits that happen from copyright claim holders, because they are so sure in the algorithm that they've trained on photographs that have no copyright, they're open public domain, or that they own the copyright and that they're compensating on their end, that they're willing to protect you as a business. So they're going and taking the step that says, we understand this is new territory and you want to use this for commercial purposes, and we're betting everything that we have that you'll be able to do that without legal liability. So that's amazing that Adobe is doing that. They're already taking a jump forward more than anyone has the capability to.
Yeah.
Which is great, but that's the can we. So that's answering that. The should we, or I think, is the next stage of that conversation. What is going to be public perception when you create an ad that is generated exclusively through AI tools? When you hear a voiceover and you know that that voiceover wasn't recorded by an actual artist, or you watch a commercial that's got video and you know that they didn't actually sell the film crew to film any of that. What is the acceptance level that we have as a culture to say that that is what we want to be seeing, that we only want to see image generated by other computers? I think that's the next step that we have to come to an agreement upon as a community, as a society, is what is the level of the amount of humanity that we want to see in the creative work that we look at, even if it's just an ad. Not to say ads are that, but I think that's important.
No, it's a good point, right? Barack Obama endorses something and it's Barack Obama, you have a very different feeling about that product and or service that was endorsed than if an AI generated version of Barack Obama did the same thing, which lacks credit. At least if you knew, you would not feel the same way from a credibility standpoint about that product or service. So it is something that we're gonna have to really think about. So let's turn a little bit to the future, because I know that we're doing a bunch on the AI front, as are other agencies and marketers. One of the things we have created is this community of practice around AI, because it's happening in all kinds of places and often behind closed doors. Maybe talk a little bit about the community of practice and where you see AI helping us, helping our clients, but also helping clients for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I think internally, we've talked a lot about how AI tools can help us just be more efficient at our jobs and do better at getting us from a blank page to the work faster. Yep. I think also some of the things that it can do is make us stronger at our work, not just make us more efficient, but literally train us to be better. One of the things that I love as an example of how AI is being used in education is that we've got two schools of thoughts happening. One where AI is being blocked at schools, and the second where schools are actually implementing it into their curriculum. And in one of the schools that's implemented it into their curriculum, when students are writing persuasive essays, they have the AI write the argumentative, the opposite side. So that way they can be better at writing an argument. We're doing the same thing here in strategy briefs. We're putting in briefs inside of AI to make it stronger, so we can question our assumptions, so we can make it so that we're looking deeper at details, or maybe we need to bring in some data and facts to make our argument stronger. So I think that's one of the things that we're looking to do within training other people inside the agency, is how is it not just doing work for you or generating ideas for you? How is it making the ideas that you already have better?
That's super interesting. I mean, we do a campaign with a client and you could ask AI to figure out what the likely responses will be from the competitors, which is very difficult to do, but they're probably going to be more accurate on something like that, which is kind of interesting.
We have used it in certain aspects to help us prepare for pitches, where we would query what questions clients might ask about something that we're presenting, which helps you get the team. I'm big on rehearsal for pitches, but it helps me create questions to ask the team to get them prepped for pitches. So we've used it in that way as well.
Yeah,
which is fascinating.
I think the other interesting thing is that it's having impact in so many areas, right? I mean, we are using it to be better and more accurate and timely on expense reports, on timesheets, which generate how we charge clients for production and pre-production, as we talked about earlier, for writing social posts, as I talked about with the citizen example. We're, as you may know, we're actually using it to do optimization of actual client campaigns to figure out, how much to spend where, against what targets and messages, et cetera, which I think could really make marketing much more efficient and successful. But it's happening in so many different places. My point of view, and I'd be interested in your point of view, is I think this is one of those things that's tough to centralize, right? Because it's just happening everywhere. What do you think is the right approach?
I think it has to be. That's what's hard, right? Like right now we're creating sort of that center of excellence for AI, but ultimately it's going to touch every aspect in every department. It's almost when you used to think of an agency as just digital or just social, and all of a sudden you're like, well, everything lives on social platforms, or everything's digital now. That seems what's happening with AI, where is it going to be a department? No, it's going to be woven into every single department in how that department is going to use AI to, save time, deliver, better quality, take on more clients or more projects. Yeah. So it's going to be in kind of across every, service line, but it's going to be used in different ways.
We'll be back after the break to talk about data protection when it comes to AI and what we can expect from this quickly evolving technology in the coming years. Welcome back to Partners in Possibility. I'm Brett Marchand. One concern that seems to come up again and again in discussions about AI is the issue of privacy. But Jeff McDonald thinks that won't be an issue much longer.
Everyone is so concerned about this AI and the data that they put in it being not protected or being used in a nefarious way. And I think what's really interesting is the next stage is people are going to be rolling their own AIs as agencies and as companies. And I think that's really going to help loosen up what people use the AI for. Like just yesterday, I started rolling my own stable diffusion on my own computer. And so everything I generate stays on this computer. It's going to be the same thing with companies. Everything they generate stays within their companies. And that knowledge set's going to stay within the company. I think that's going to be super important.
So you're saying that information is not global, it's local.
It stays on a localized machine. So imagine if you were logged into the VPN for Plus Company. We're all using Plus Code GPT, and I have it write a creative brief using a bunch of secretive information from our clients. That stays within our server, in our secure enclave. No one can see that data generation. But what is helpful is that everyone within the network gets to benefit from that by the AI getting smarter, by us seeing the responses and the prompts that they wrote. So that's the next stage of this is
closed AI.
Closed AI, which I know is separate from where I normally preach from, which is this open democratized network. But I think so many people have concerns around privacy, and especially around what the EU put out with the AI Act this week proposal. I think that's going to be the next step.
I think that's fascinating, though, because we're going to get asked by clients that question, right? Are you using the tools? And if so, what security measures do you have on those tools? So,
and we are thinking about this, by the way, like with Project Catalyst. One of the reasons that we have done things like the 55 Rush acquisition is because we are going to have first party data and client data, which is going to be closed. And we're going to combine that with, the trillions of pieces of data that you can access in the, on the internet, in the open market, in things like Chat GPT and Midjourney. But when you combine the two of them, you can actually create something that's, not just unique, but actually uniquely powerful, insightful, and proprietary. Yeah. So I completely agree with you, Jeff. I think that really is the future. I'd love to hear your point of view and discuss a little bit the difference between AI and Web3, because, Web3 and the metaverse was everywhere. I mean, companies like Facebook changed their name. So, and it feels like it's sort of not gone, because I don't think it is gone, but it's definitely waned. And AI has become the topic. Is this just a fad? How do you see AI versus Web3, Jeff?
Well, I think one of the key differences here is that if you read through any of the headlines that were written about with Web3, all of the applications that people were talking about in the news were around. I don't want to mix words because there's a lot of legislation going on in the US about this right now, but speculative assets, let's just call it that, around NFTs and cryptocurrencies. And I think one of the issues that we lost sight of in Web3 is we talked about those objects and we didn't talk about the underlying technologies that could truly revolutionize the way that consumers own their data.
Right.
By having you have the ability to own your persona and your data on the internet, the ability to have frictionless transactions where there's no intermediary. We lost the ability to talk smartly about the blockchain and the ways that the blockchain can impact every single aspect of the way we do business, even what we're doing with AI. And it became just about that topic. And I think people very much are willing to, push all of Web3 out the door and say, oh, well, because cryptocurrencies are down and because NFTs are down, Web3 is just a fad. It's not going to catch on. It is in the sense that maybe the next time you work with a brand or you are a brand, you may not be recommending an NFT launch right now. But I don't think AI is the same way in the sense that blockchain is not also going away. AI is here. It's impacting the way that we do our work. It's impacting the way that we're going to be looking at data. And obviously the way we're going to view images on the internet, we're going to have to be a little bit more critical of whether or not those images are real or if they've been created by an AI or at least modified. So my hope is that we've learned what we needed to learn from the rise of Web3 and use it as a learning template for how AI can be more impactful in the background and be used at an infrastructure level. And we don't see it as this, let's just generate something with AI and then never talk about it ever again. We need to look at how AI can be implemented in every part of our roles and not just as this flashy new thing. Because if we do that, it will be a fad. It won't be something that we jump onto and use as a way to revolutionize the way that we do work.
Yeah, something tells me AI is not a fad.
I think I read some stat that 3% of the population own an NFT, and almost 30% have tried AI. So if you look at that, it kind of shows that the adoption has been much faster, and that feels like it's going to be here to stay.
Yeah. I mean, we could have a whole other episode about the intersection of Web3, especially both the blockchain and DAOs combined with AI, and then add quantum computing when that comes along. And, that could be a whole new world. But we'll save that maybe for another episode. How's that? AI is definitely having a moment, and the most cutting edge tools are available for basically anyone to use. Me, AI Brett, is a perfect example. With just interview audio and recorded consent, we were able to create a relatively convincing AI version of my, or Brett Marchand's, voice.
So many of the tools of creation And the tools of image generation, things like that, for years have been gatekept around it being too technical. And it's too hard for you to learn. Oh, you want to become a video editor because you're really interested in being a film director? Well, the tools are pretty technical. And all that we've been doing over the last several decades is making it so we can close that gap and make it so that every tool is democratized and easier to use. And AI just does that at every level. Yeah. It makes it so that you can go into Photoshop and type exactly what you want. Or moving into video editing, you're going to be able to go into a video editing tool and type exactly what you want. I just saw a really amazing example of a website generation tool where you can type in exactly what a website is that you want. This next generation of creators, they're going to have this opportunity that no one has had in the past, where if they can think it, they can make it.
Yeah, they don't have to know code, right?
Exactly.
I have a friend who lives in Silicon Valley who's got 2 younger kids who, once Chat GPT came out, he took his kids out of coding classes because he's like, this is not going to be necessary.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I think one scary thing about AI and technology is, and that we're facing in the agency level, is, there's a declining sense of belonging in the U.S. With close friendships on massive decline, intimate relationships. I think with the proliferation of technology and coupled with the difficulty of RTO and getting people to interact and socialize, one flag for me as a agency, leader is it's a tool that is another tool of, in a sense, isolation, where you can kind of have that do the work for you. And it's less of a, I'm stuck. We need to crack this together. So that's just something in the back of my mind.
Yeah, especially when you add bias and the bias of AI to that, right? So I think it's a very good point. And well, hopefully Jeff's right. And what AI is going to be about is getting people off their computers so they can spend more time connecting socially, which is super important for happiness, as we all know. But it's also super important for creativity, which is to talk to other people with different points of views and find intersections, which I'm not sure AI can do, frankly.
That's the next stage of AI tools, in my opinion. Like, if you wanted to take a bet and you were to generate an AI tool today, I would make a social AI platform where people are using generative AI together to make a better idea, because you're bringing in multiple tastes. The same way that AI works by bringing in thousands of data points all at the same time to make a decision. If you add that layer and you have 20 team members at your agency helping drive where that AI is headed with, let's say, the next pitch deck is created using AI, that makes it that much more powerful, because you have all of those extra inputs, those better inputs coming from all those points of view. So my hope is that instead of AI tools being this social isolation tool where you're constantly just chatting with this computer and not a real person to help make your ideas better, that it'll actually become an opportunity for you to be able to have a second person over your shoulder when you're using Chat GPT, and you can be writing in your inputs or responses at the same time. That's where I hope that it heads next. And as we start to see how things only get better as we bring in more human elements into this artificial intelligence world.
Right. Listen, this has been really interesting. I was already super excited about AI and what's going on in its future. And as you guys have said, what it can do for us and for our clients. But I'm even more excited now, and I'm glad we have you guys on top of this stuff, by the way. So congratulations for what you've done up until now, and good luck with all the work that's coming and all the opportunities that are in front of us. So thanks for joining me. Thank you for listening to Partners in Possibility. That was part 2 of my discussion with Jason Harris, co-founder and CEO of Mekanism and Director of Social Strategy, Jeff McDonald. I hope this has been useful in helping you create and develop your own relationship with AI. And keep an eye out for that collaborative AI that Jeff predicted. I think you might be onto something.